Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we'll be going over the Ram TRX Redeye, and we're going to dig down into this truck and figure out if Ram is actually going to release this truck. Before getting the video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get right into it. So first off, we have to talk about what the TRX Redeye actually is, and it basically is just a souped up version of the current TRX, as if it needs any more souping up. So if you look at the Dodge Charger and Challenger Redeye, they're just souped up versions of the Hellcat. So they have 797 horsepower and then like 707 pound-feet of torque. So they get a bump in horsepower and torque over a standard Hellcat, because a standard Hellcat only has 717 horsepower and then 650 pound-feet of torque. And so if they did that to the TRX, then instead of having 702 horsepower, it'd have 797, and instead of having 650 pound-feet of torque, it would have, 707 pound-feet of torque. And I think it's funny that Dodge has basically creeped all the way up to the power outputs of the Demon, but they won't beat it because the new Jailbreak has it has like 807 horsepower, which is one less horsepower than the Demon on pump gas, and so it's always funny. They'll never beat it. But anyways, there's a lot of reasons why Ram could do this and very easily do this. So first off, there are already companies that are selling quote-unquote Redeye TRXs. So if you look at Hennessy, for example, they have a bunch of different tunes, and they have a tune all the way up to 1,000 horsepower on the TRX. They call it the Mammoth 1000, and they warranty it. And so we already know that it's possible to put this kind of power in a TRX, and it's also possible to warranty it as well, right? Hennessy is obviously huge at this point, and they have a very strong financial backing, but Stellantis, right, is a lot larger. And so if Hennessy can warranty a tune on the TRX that's 1,000 horsepower, then I'm sure that Stellantis can warranty a Ram TRX with a measly 800-ish horsepower. So not only is it very possible from an engineering standpoint, it is very possible from a warranty standpoint as well, because you have to think about both of those as to why a manufacturer may or may not release a particular vehicle. And then on top of that, this would be a great answer to the Ford Raptor R, because the Ford Raptor R is most likely going to beat the TRX in power outputs. I don't see why Ford wouldn't do that, because Ford and Ram are always having a something measuring game with their torque or with their horsepower with their different models. Look at the Super Duty and look at the Ram 3500. It's like one of the trucks gets more torque, then the other truck all of a sudden gets more torque, and then it's so on and so forth. Like, we're at the point where the Super Duty has 1,050 pound-feet of torque, and the Cummins has freaking 1,075 pound-feet of torque. And just a few years ago, they're both at like 800 something. It's just ridiculous. But again, that's just the world that we live in. We have torque battles and we have horsepower battles. So the Raptor R is probably going to have at least 720 horsepower, if not 760 horsepower, like the Shelby GT500. And the reason I'm mentioning the GT500 is because the Ford Raptor R is going to be using the GT500 supercharged 5.2 liter V8. That being said, though, in the GT500, that engine only produces 625 pound-feet of torque, which is actually less than the Hellcat powertrain. And so that is something that's actually going against Ram doing this, is because Ram could just claim, oh yeah, the TRX has more torque. Yeah, the Raptor has more horsepower, but trucks are all about torque and we still have more torque. And so there definitely could be that argument made. And then on top of that, against it, Ram is not struggling to sell TRXs whatsoever. They are selling like crazy. Ram is selling as many TRXs as what Ford was selling in terms of Raptors when the Raptor first came out. We don't have exact numbers on both the trucks because we're still in the 2022 model year, but it sounds like Ram is keeping up pace to sell even more this year, especially compared to 2021. And so what that really means is that they don't really have too much pressure to change this truck all that much, because it's not like they're struggling to sell it. And then on top of that, the Ford Raptor R is most likely going to be a very difficult truck to get a hold of. And so yeah, there's a lot of people that are excited about the Ford Raptor R that's being released in the next year or so, but at the same time, there's probably not going to be a lot of people that are actually going to be able to get a hold of it. Look at the current Ford Raptor EcoBoost, and I've talked about this in several videos. It is extremely difficult to get one, and on top of that, there's crazy dealer markups on the Ford Raptors. And so the Ford Raptor R is basically going to be similar to the EcoBoost in terms of how difficult it is to get, if not more difficult to get. And then the markups are going to be as crazy, if not crazier. Like right now in the EcoBoost, minimum markup I've seen is like $10,000, but I've seen typically $20,000, $30,000 on these trucks, sometimes even more. And so you imagine the Ford Raptor R is probably going to be even higher compared to that. And so again, there's not really a ton of pressure for Ram to do this package with the TRX, because again, they're not struggling to sell TRXs, and Ford still doesn't have the Raptor R out yet, so the TRX technically doesn't have any competition. But then once the TRX does have competition, the Ford Raptor R is going to be so expensive from a markup perspective, or it's going to be so difficult to get, that people are just going to go with the TRX. That is happening right now. If you guys look at sales of the TRX, it seems like they kind of like started to balloon even more so after the new Raptor was released, because first off, a lot of people just wanted a V8, but secondly, a lot of people realized that they would have to pay a crazy market premium for the Raptor, and then it would just be super difficult to get. So they're like, you know what, I'm just going to go get the TRX because it has a V8, and I'll actually be able to get one, and I'll actually be able to get a good deal on the truck, because there's dealers that are selling these trucks for MSRP and some are selling them for under MSRP. You'll never see that. You might see MSRP with the Raptor for a very select number of dealers, but then they won't get that many allocations. You'll definitely never see under MSRP on a Raptor in this current market. And so, yeah, that's kind of like on both sides. It would be awesome if Ram released the TRX Redeye, but I just don't see them doing it, because the biggest thing is there's just no pressure. And on top of that, with companies like Hennessy already having versions of the TRX with 800, 900, 1,000 horsepower, Ram can just basically tell people, yep, just go get Hennessy's tune. If you want to have that power, there are sources for you to go get that power. And so I don't think they're really going to worry about it. I think they're going to just focus more on making different colors with the TRX from an interior and exterior perspective, like their Sandblast edition that they just released. And they're just going to kind of keep it at that, right? They're just going to keep releasing these special editions that are the same truck, right, with some slight exterior tweaks, but they're not really going to worry about things from a performance standpoint. And again, if you look at it from like a business perspective, if you are able to sell a vehicle, and they've also been able to sell it for more money over time because they've been increasing the MSRP. So if you're able to sell a vehicle at a very high volume for what it is, and then on top of that increase the price and still be able to sell it, then what's the point of changing it, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it, that type of deal. Anyways, that's going to sum things up. So yeah, I'll see you guys.